What if everything you believed about spiritual awakening was a lie? What if the moment you finally see through life's illusions, you don't become energized and purposeful, but instead find yourself completely drained of all motivation? This isn't spiritual failure. It's exactly what's supposed to happen, and today, I'm going to reveal the hidden truth about why awakening can feel like psychological death, and how to transform this apparent emptiness into the most powerful source of authentic drive you've ever experienced. But first, let me tell you about a discovery that changed everything we thought we knew about consciousness and motivation. A renowned psychologist spent decades studying people who had profound spiritual breakthroughs. What he found shocked him. Nearly 3/4 of these individuals lost their drive entirely within just a few months, not because they had failed in their spiritual journey, but because they had succeeded too completely. They had seen through every illusion that once motivated them. Every goal that used to excite them now felt hollow. Every ambition that once drove them forward suddenly seemed meaningless. Sound familiar? If you're lying in bed right now, wondering why nothing seems to matter anymore despite being more aware than ever before, you're not alone, you're not broken, and you're definitely not going backward. You're experiencing what spiritual traditions have recognized for millennia, but what modern teachings rarely prepare you for: the death of your false self. Here's what most spiritual teachers won't tell you. Awakening doesn't just illuminate truth. It annihilates everything that isn't true, including the very motivations that got you through life up until now. Think about it. What drove you before your awakening? Career success? Social recognition? Finding love? Accumulating wealth? Proving your worth? When you truly awaken, you see that every single one of these drives was rooted in fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of rejection. Fear of insignificance. Your consciousness expanded enough to see that chasing external validation is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. It's impossible. And once you see this truth, you can't unsee it. This is why you feel so empty. Your old fuel tank just ran dry, and you haven't discovered the new one yet. But here's the crucial part that changes everything. This emptiness isn't permanent. It's transitional. You're not at the end of your journey. You're in the middle of it. You're in what ancient alchemists called the dissolution phase, where your old identity must completely break down before your authentic self can emerge. Let me share with you the story of someone who discovered this the hard way. Meet Sarah, a successful entrepreneur who had spent years building what she thought was her dream business. She meditated daily, read spiritual texts, and considered herself quite evolved. Then one morning during meditation, something shifted. She experienced what felt like complete ego dissolution. For the first time, she saw herself not as Sarah, the entrepreneur, but as pure consciousness temporarily wearing the costume of a human being. The experience was profound, life-changing, euphoric. For about a week. Then Sarah couldn't get out of bed. Not because she was depressed, but because every reason she'd ever had for getting up felt completely artificial. Her business? Just ego games. Her relationships? Attempts to avoid loneliness. Her goals? Social programming disguised as personal desires. Sarah came to therapy not seeking medication, but seeking understanding. Why had her spiritual breakthrough led to complete motivation breakdown? Here's what she learned and what you need to understand too. Sarah hadn't experienced spiritual failure. She had experienced spiritual success. She had successfully seen through the matrix of false motivations that keep most people running on. The hamster wheel of unconscious living. But seeing through illusions is only half the process. The other half is learning how to live authentically in a world built on those very illusions. This requires developing what we might call authentic motivation. Motivation that doesn't depend on external validation or ego gratification. Motivation that emerges from your deepest nature rather than your conditioned fears. But here's the catch. You can't think your way to authentic motivation. You can't strategize it or plan it or force it into existence. Authentic motivation emerges naturally when you create the right internal conditions. Like a seed that only sprouts when the soil, water, and temperature are perfectly aligned. Most people panic during this transition phase. They try to resurrect their old motivations through willpower. They force themselves back into goal setting and achievement chasing. This is like trying to put a butterfly back into its cocoon. It's not just impossible. It's a betrayal of your own evolution. So what's the alternative? Learning to wait consciously. This doesn't mean being passive. It means becoming extremely active in your inner world while allowing your outer world to reorganize itself around your emerging authenticity. Think of it like this. You've been driving your life using a GPS system programmed by society, family expectations, and unconscious fears. The awakening process basically crashed that GPS. Now you're sitting in your car, unsure which direction to go. The temptation is to panic and start driving randomly, or to try to fix the broken GPS. But what if the breakdown of your old navigation system is actually perfect? What if this is exactly when your internal compass finally gets quiet enough to be heard? Your authentic self has been whispering to you your entire life. But it was drowned out by the noise of ego-driven ambitions and fear-based motivations. Now that those voices have gone quiet, you finally have the chance to hear what's been there all along. But listening requires patience. It requires what we might call motivational fasting. Consciously abstaining from forcing any agenda while you attune to subtler guidance. This is why the emptiness phase is so crucial. It's not emptiness at all, it's spaciousness. Room for something authentic to emerge. Let me tell you about Michael's experience with this process. Michael was a high-powered attorney who experienced a profound awakening during a near-death experience. When he recovered, he couldn't summon any interest in legal work. None of his previous ambitions made sense anymore. For months, Michael felt lost. He'd seen the ultimate nature of reality, but now he couldn't even get excited about winning cases. Instead of forcing himself back into old patterns, Michael decided to trust the process. He took a leave of absence and spent time in nature, not seeking anything specific, just being present. Slowly, something began to emerge. Not a grand life plan or career pivot, but subtle impulses. He felt drawn to volunteer at a legal aid clinic. Not for professional development, but because something in him responded to people who couldn't afford justice. This wasn't driven by career ambition or social pressure. It felt more like gravity, like water finding its natural course. Within a year, Michael had completely restructured his practice around pro bono work. He made less money, but felt more alive than ever before. His motivation wasn't coming from external rewards. It was emerging from internal alignment. This is what authentic motivation feels like. It doesn't push or drive or demand. It calls. It invites. It whispers. It feels less like I have to and more like I get to. But here's what makes this transition so challenging in our culture. We've been trained to believe that motivation should feel urgent and driven. That if we're not pushing toward goals, we're being lazy or unambitious. Authentic motivation operates on completely different principles. It's seasonal rather than constant. It works with natural rhythms rather than forcing artificial timelines. It's collaborative rather than controlling. Instead of trying to make things happen, you become exquisitely sensitive to what wants to happen through you. Most importantly, it's sustainable because it emerges from abundance rather than scarcity, from love rather than fear, from your authentic nature rather than conditioned programming. People operating from authentic motivation often describe feeling like their life is living them rather than them living their life. They become conduits for something larger while remaining fully engaged with practical reality. But how do you cultivate this kind of motivation? How do you transition from the emptiness phase to the emergence phase? It starts with learning to distinguish between ego impulses and soul impulses. Ego impulses always come with hidden agendas. I want to start this business, so people will see me as successful. I want to write this book, so I'll be recognized as an expert. I want this relationship, so I won't feel alone. Soul impulses stand alone. I want to create. I want to help. I want to explore. They don't need justification because they emerge from internal fullness rather than external lack. The challenge is that most people have been running on ego impulses for so long that they've never experienced pure soul impulses. The awakening process strips away the ego programming, revealing authentic desires that have been buried underneath. But accessing these requires what we might call conscious receptivity, learning to receive impulses rather than generate them, listening rather than planning. This is completely counterintuitive in our action-oriented culture. We're taught that successful people set goals and chase them relentlessly. But authentic living requires the opposite approach. Instead of chasing goals, you chase fascination. Instead of following plans, you follow energy. Instead of pursuing achievements, you pursue alignment. Let me share another story that illustrates this beautifully. Emma was a marketing executive who lost all interest in corporate success after a profound meditation retreat experience. For 6 months, she felt completely directionless. Her old ambitions seemed silly, but nothing new had taken their place. Instead of forcing a new direction, Emma practiced what she called productive purposelessness. She would wake up each morning and ask, "What wants to emerge through me today?" Then she would follow whatever felt most alive. Some days she painted. Some days she walked in nature. Some days she had long conversations with friends. None of it seemed particularly meaningful or productive, but slowly a pattern began to emerge. Emma noticed that her most energizing moments happened when she was helping people see themselves more clearly. Not through formal coaching or therapy, but through authentic conversation and presence. This realization didn't come as a lightning bolt insight. It emerged gradually through paying attention to what consistently brought her alive. Within a year, Emma had transitioned into a completely different career focused on helping people navigate major life transitions. She wasn't making as much money, but she was making more impact. More importantly, she was operating from overflow rather than depletion. Her work didn't drain her energy. It generated energy because it aligned with her deepest nature. This is the hallmark of authentic motivation. It's regenerative rather than depleting. It works with your natural inclinations rather than against them. But here's what most people miss about this process. The transition from ego motivation to soul motivation requires what we might call identity death and rebirth. Your old sense of self, built around external achievements and social validation, has to dissolve before your authentic self can emerge. This is why the emptiness phase feels so disorienting. You're not just changing careers or relationships or goals. You're changing who you fundamentally are. This level of transformation can't be rushed or forced. The psyche has its own timing. For rebirth, trying to accelerate the process often leads to spiritual bypassing. Pretending to be motivated when you're actually still in the dissolution phase. The key is learning to trust the intelligence of emptiness. To understand that what looks like stagnation is actually gestation. Something is being born in the darkness of your uncertainty, but you have to be willing to stay in the cocoon long enough for the transformation to complete itself. Most people bail out of this process too early. They get uncomfortable with the uncertainty and try to return to familiar patterns. But once you've seen through the illusions that motivated your old life, there's no going back. You can only go forward into greater authenticity. This requires tremendous courage, because authentic living often leads away from conventional success. Metrics. You might make less money, receive less recognition, or face criticism from people who don't understand your choices, but you'll experience something that money can't buy and recognition can't provide. You'll experience the deep satisfaction of living in alignment with your truest nature. You'll discover what we might call incarnated purpose. When your authentic essence finds expression through your human life, this isn't about finding your passion or discovering your calling. It's about becoming a channel for something that wants to emerge through you into the world. People living from this place share certain characteristics. They work from overflow, not depletion. Their natural enthusiasm carries them forward rather than them having to push themselves. They respond rather than initiate. Instead of forcing opportunities, they become highly sensitive to what life is offering them. They develop what we might call synchronistic awareness, the ability to recognize meaningful coincidences as guidance. They serve something larger without losing themselves. Their work benefits others not through self-sacrifice, but through authentic expression. When you're truly aligned with your soul's calling, your mere existence becomes a gift to others. But let me be clear about something important. Living from authentic motivation isn't always easy. It requires releasing attachment to external validation in favor of internal alignment. You might face periods of financial uncertainty while you transition to work that aligns with your values. You might experience criticism from family or friends who don't understand your choices. But here's what I've observed about people who make this transition successfully. They describe a quality of life that can't be measured in traditional success metrics. They wake up excited about their day not because they have impressive goals, but because they're living in alignment with their deepest nature. Their work feels like play because it emerges from their authentic interests and capabilities. Their relationships deepen because they're relating from truth rather than strategy. Most importantly, they experience a sustainable form of motivation that doesn't depend on external circumstances, because it emerges from the inexhaustible source of their authentic being. So if you're in that emptiness phase right now, wondering if you'll ever feel motivated about anything again, let me offer you a different perspective. The emptiness you're experiencing isn't the absence of purpose. It's the presence of purpose so authentic that your ego can't recognize it. Your old motivations had to die because they were keeping you from discovering what truly wants to live through you. The void you're in isn't empty. It's pregnant with possibilities that can only emerge when you stop trying to fill it with old patterns. Your awakening didn't kill your motivation. It killed your limitations. Here's your assignment. Practice what we might call conscious waiting. Instead of trying to force new goals or resurrect old ambitions, spend time each day asking, what wants to emerge through me? Then listen without judgment to whatever arises. It might be subtle at first, a gentle pull towards certain activities, an unexplained interest in topics you've never explored, a desire to spend time with certain people or in certain places. Follow these impulses not because they make logical sense, but because they feel alive in your body, because they generate energy rather than depleting it. Remember, authentic purpose can't be figured out. It can only be lived into. Trust that your soul knows what it's doing. Even when your mind doesn't understand the process, you're not broken for losing motivation after awakening. You're being prepared for motivation so authentic and powerful that it will transform not just your life, but everyone your life touches. The caterpillar doesn't understand what's happening in the cocoon. It just trusts the process of transformation. Your job is the same. Trust the process. Trust the emptiness. Trust that something beautiful is being born in the darkness of your uncertainty. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, I trust the process. Let's build a community of people who understand that spiritual emptiness is often spiritual pregnancy. And if you're ready to dive deeper into understanding how authentic transformation really works, check out our video on the hidden patterns of narcissistic manipulation that could be blocking your spiritual growth. You'll discover insights that could save your psychological freedom. Thank you for being part of the Sacred Patterns community. I'll see you in the next dimension of understanding.